You know, some of the people on the plane
The question today, how could this happen?
We are going to leave no stone unturned in this investigation.
The investigation into the nation's deadliest airline disaster in decades as crews work to recover the victims and the truth.
They will do reconstruction and review of air traffic control systems.
This afternoon, we're asking an aviation expert what could have gone wrong.
The skaters, the people who were on that plane, they're our family too.
I'm Makovec, and this is now being called a recovery mission this afternoon after American Airlines plane getting ready to land collided midair with an Army helicopter near Washington, D.C., killing dozens of people. Let's take a live look at the scene. This is at the Potomac River, just south of the nation's capital. Right now, in the darkness, crews are still out in the freezing water trying to recover bodies and any clues as to what led to this deadly crash. Here's a little perspective on where that search is happening right now. The Potomac River is east of the Reagan National Airport in Virginia. And here's what we know right now. Investigators say there were 64 people on that plane from Wichita, Kansas, and 3 soldiers on board the military helicopter. President Trump says nobody survived. Authorities say that 40 bodies have been recovered from the river so far. The Secretary of Defense has confirmed that the helicopter was on a training flight conducting an annual evaluation. A source telling CBS News both of the plane's black boxes have just been recovered. Let's get right over to Erica Brown live at Reagan National Airport in Arlington, Virginia. Erica.
Well, and those black boxes will now make their way to an NTSB lab to be analyzed about a mile from the crash scene, and this could potentially offer key clues into what happened.
Recovery efforts on the Potomac River continued Thursday afternoon in one of the deadliest U.S. aviation accidents in recent history. CCTV captured the moment when an Army Black Hawk helicopter collided with an American Airlines regional jet as it prepared to land at Reagan National Airport last night.
At this point, we don't believe there are any survivors from this accident.
The National Transportation Safety Board is leading the investigation into how the collision occurred.
As part of any investigation, we look at the human, the machine, and the environment. So we will look at all the humans that were involved in this accident.
President Trump appeared in the briefing room requesting a moment of silence for the victims.
We are one family, and today we are all heartbroken. We're all searching for answers.
He then quickly pointed a finger at the previous administration's hiring practices.
The FAA is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric problems, and other mental and physical conditions under a diversity and inclusion hiring initiative.
Democrats pushed back.
For the President of the United States to throw out idle speculation as bodies are still being recovered and families still being notified. It just turns your stomach.
Flights have resumed here at Reagan National Airport after they were paused for nearly 14 hours, though several hundred were canceled and others delayed.
American Eagle Flight 5342 originated in Wichita, Kansas, where a prayer service was held Thursday.
But the only way that we will get through this is together.
Officials say flight conditions were clear Wednesday night.
And the NTSB says that they are closely coordinating with the family members of the passengers to keep them updated on the very latest. And they do plan to release a preliminary report within 30 days. Ann?
Yeah, as for the families of the victims, is there some sort of center where they're all based right now, or is anybody hanging out at the airport?
Well, we don't see them here, but American Airlines and the NTSB is working very closely with them. They're in a secure location to give them the latest detail on their loved ones. We have learned that 40 bodies have been recovered by authorities from the Potomac, but obviously there's still at least 37 more that are up there. And so the NTSB is trying their best to make sure that the family members are learning about this information first, not through media, but first through them, and kept up to date on the very latest on this tragic situation.
All right, Erica Brown live for us in D.C. Thanks for that report. That Midair collision is hitting the ice skating community especially hard. U.S. figure skating confirms that the plane's passengers included several of its members. A memorial is growing at the Ashburn Ice House in Virginia. The club's general manager says some of his members were on American Airlines Flight 5342.
It's a shame that the community has to experience this, and the potential of several individuals no longer participating, it leaves a void.
And the Skating Club of Boston is grieving the loss of 6 of its members, 2 of them coaches, 2 young skaters and their mothers. Former professional skater Nancy Kerrigan fought through tears as she spoke about the tragedy.
I feel for the athletes, the skaters, their families, but anyone that was on that plane, not just the skaters, because it's just such a tragic event.
The skaters, coaches, and family members were returning from U.S. Figure Skating Championships and Development Camp in Kansas. Here is a look at the 2 aircraft involved in that crash, a standard CRJ-700 regional jet, which can hold up to 78 people, and a Swarovski H-60 Black Hawk helicopter, which can transport up to 12 fully equipped seated troops in combat. There are about 5,000 of these helicopters in use by the U.S. military. So how does something like this happen? Right now, we are joined by Julianne Fox. She is an aviation expert with the company Decision Speed. Thanks for being with us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
We know that they've already started digging in, trying to find facts, but where do you even begin an investigation like this?
Well, as Jennifer Homendy from the NTSB pointed out aptly, they will be looking at the man, the human, all the pilots, air traffic control, any human involved in the scenario. They'll be looking at the airplane and the helicopter. They'll be looking in the control tower at the displays, and they'll reenact and look at what transpired and why. There'll be, as I understand it, and we'll know now that the CVR, the cockpit voice recorder, has been found, that it's my understanding that the Black Hawk did not respond to or acknowledge air traffic control's direction to follow behind the airplane. So we'll know all the discussion going on in both flight decks. We'll know the line of sight and where attention was likely focused. So for the airplane, for example, being that they just switched runways, as we know, and they were within seconds of touching down, their focus most likely would be between the instrumentation in the airplane and the runway itself, and not out to the side of the aircraft for an aircraft coming at a 90-degree angle. And for the helicopter, we know the airplane wasn't at 100 feet, it was passing through 100 feet. So it came from a higher elevation through to their elevation. And so we'll look at how conspicuous or how noticeable was that aircraft, or should that aircraft have been to the helicopter. There will be all sorts of questions. So the human, the machine, and also the environment. To what extent did the nighttime conditions play a part? Because we know the human visual system is better and worse. It's detecting certain things in certain conditions. And so they'll be looking at that as well.
All right, well, there's so much technology on board these aircraft. I think that's what's been stunning a lot of people, especially when it comes to the Black Hawk. This is a military-equipped aircraft. What role does the technology play? Even if the human would totally screw up, why didn't that prevent this?
Yeah, so that's when I speak to the machine and the airplane, I am in part talking about the avionics, for example. So not only do you have in the airplane a required system called the Traffic Collision Avoidance System, commonly referred to as TCAS. That system, from a much greater distance out, starts enunciating and displaying, or initially displaying, then eventually enunciating the presence of an aircraft within the vicinity of their airplane. And so it would start out on the display as a white symbol, then it becomes a yellow symbol, a red symbol, and eventually, assuming that the airplane had their resolution advisory turned on, and that's something the NTSB will be looking for, whether that was turned on, they also would have gotten an oral command, or should have gotten an oral command, as to what they should do. So in this case, for example, climb, if that's what they should have done. Mm-hmm. And on their artificial horizon in the airplane, it also would have put a black box around where the airplane should not go. And crews are trained to respond to these kinds of alerts and warnings regularly.
Talking about personnel, I know there's been a lot of questions about staffing in the control tower. How much do you think that could have played a role? How important are these air traffic controllers?
Well, air traffic controllers are a necessary element in busy airports such as we have at Reagan National. I understand, and I've just heard on the news, don't have any factual backing for the data, but that there usually are two controllers, one handling the helicopters and one handling the airplanes coming into that airport, and it was one controller handling both. So that'll be another set of questions that the NTSB will be likely asking: is to what extent did workload affect the controller's ability to give the command to the Black Hawk soon enough, and to what extent did workload impact the pilots in their ability to respond. And one other important piece of information would be clearly neither of these flight crews would be expecting the potential of the collision. And so we know their expectations were likely violated. And when that occurs, we know humans can often have a delayed response. I typically like to refer to it as a deer in the headlights, where our ability to respond to the stimulus is delayed other than what it would be if we were expecting it.
All right. A lot of interesting points. Julianne Fox, aviation expert. We really appreciate your perspective. And of course, stay with us for the latest on the investigation into this Midair collision. We're going to continue to bring you updates on air and streaming on the free CBS News app. President Trump already taking executive action in the wake of the Midair crash. Coming up next, the moves he says will make it safer to fly. Well, here in California, 4 in 10 people who are released from prison end up back behind bars. That's according to the most recent numbers from the state. Overall, the trend is improving, thanks in part to programs like the one led by a North Bay attorney. Sharon Chin introduces us to this week's CBS News Bay Area Icon Award winner.
Elisa Lasser guides people with criminal histories to new beginnings.
You're giving them hope.
I hope so. Yes, I absolutely, because they're worth it.
Her story begins 10 years ago. As a criminal defense attorney for indigent defendants, she argued for a burglar's rehabilitation outside of prison.
Probation had recommended that my client not be sent to state prison, but the judge disregarded that and sent the client to the maximum amount of in-state prison.
The case hit her hard.
I was devastated. I was crying for like 3 days. I decided I had to do something to help people stay out of the criminal justice system. And that's how New Beginnings Law Center was born.
Since 2015, Elisa and her staff at New Beginnings Law Center have helped some 500 people reintegrate into their communities after finishing their prison terms. Her San Rafael nonprofit supports the health of the whole person: mind, body, spirit, emotions, and community.
I want the coffee.
She collaborates with other organizations to make sure her clients get what they need, including education, housing, job skills, legal help, substance abuse treatment, reconnecting with family, and more.
The reason that we're successful is because we're compassionate, but we have accountability. You'll know when the time is right.
Siobhan Bozarth's long rap sheet in drugs and burglary kept her from getting a car sales license until Elisa helped her prove her sobriety and rehabilitation. Inspired by Elisa, Siobhan's now discovered a new purpose at a nonprofit helping people in recovery find jobs.
What I would have imagined to be an impossible task, I feel like Elisa has conquered. Not just for me, but with me.
And Charles Lunny got his real estate license after Elisa helped expunge his criminal record and walked him through the interview process.
It's daunting at times, and so she would just talk to me and explain to me, Charles, we have to do this. Charles, I need you to do that. Don't worry about it. It's okay. You're doing great. You're an all-star. Just championing me on, and I really appreciated that.
Today, Charles works at a barber shop and even gives free haircuts for charity. Elisa is like family.
When you look at your life and your future now, what do you see as a result of the support that she's given you?
Brighter days. brighter days, hope.
So, for wrapping her arms around hundreds of people with criminal histories seeking new beginnings, this week's CBS News Bay Area Icon Award goes to Elisa Lasser.
The services are not free. Clients pay on a sliding scale according to federal poverty level guidelines. And there's no time limit. Elisa's there as long as they need. Congratulations to her. If you'd like to nominate your own community hero for a CBS News Bay Area Icon Award, go to our website, kpix.com/icon. All right, back to that developing news we're following out of Washington, D.C. Today, President Trump signed 2 executive orders related to the deadly Midair crash near D.C. The first appointed an acting chief of the FAA. The other orders the Transportation Department to review all hiring decisions from the past 4 years.
Thanks for watching. You can always get all the latest headlines and weather over on Pix Plus. And remember to like and click the button on the bottom left of your screen to subscribe for the biggest Bay Area news.